Football Coaching Life, a podcast brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media, the podcast professionals. For today's podcast, we're honoured to have Ufuk Talay, manager, head coach, whatever we call him. We'll work that out as we go through, of Wellington Phoenix. Ufuk's had a sterling 300-plus professional career that kicked off at Marconi, where he played alongside Stevie Corica. Their careers seem to have crossed paths a bit and won a championship. Was signed by Graham Souness at Galatasaray in Turkey, and we'll talk about those and hopefully some of the Fenerbahce derbies there. Was loaned for a range of different clubs in Turkey before heading off to the French second division and then back to Turkey, back to Sydney FC to kick off the A-League, spent a season with Avispa Fukuoka in Japan, and then came back to play with North Queensland Fury for a couple of seasons. And then I think may have even had a run around with Sydney United, where his assistant coaching career kicked off. He's had a wonderful coaching career that commenced with a number of years as assistants, initially at Sydney United, then at the AIS, was assistant with the Joeys, the under-17s, was a head coach of the under-20s, where he took over from Paul Ocon, back to Sydney FC as an assistant to work with Stevie Corica, and has been head coach manager at Wellington Phoenix since 2019. Welcome, Ufuk Talay.
Thank you very much, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. More to the point. Well, actually, let me introduce my T-shirt. A good friend of mine sent me a T-shirt the other day, and it's got Ted Lasso on it, who's probably, after yourself and Ange Postecoglou, one of the few managers in the world that everyone wants to be coached by. So we thought we'd give Ted a bit of a kick off today. More to the point, mate, how are you? We know you've missed 7 days with COVID. So if you wouldn't mind telling us, whereabouts are you and how are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. Great that I got out of isolation. I did the 7 days with the COVID. So it was like a frustrating time to be locked indoors, especially when we've got a lot of games backing up. But Giancarlo, my assistant coach, did a fantastic job in getting those 2 results that he got whilst I was away, and continue the great work. So look, I'm back again. So I'm back amongst with the boys, and we had a game on the weekend that wasn't a great result for us, but we've got a game tomorrow evening again that's we're looking forward to.
Yeah, they come around a bit thick and fast at the moment, don't they?
Yeah, look, we're not in a great space in the sense of, look, obviously we're based in Australia at the moment. We've got a few injuries. We've got 4 players out with COVID again. So, some of the boys that were infected earlier in the season have been reinfected again. So, wow. It's one of those ones where it's become a very, very challenging season.
Yeah, which rolls on from a previous challenging season. So without you're a coaches, there's no excuses here. We have to make do with what we do. But can you give us a bit of an insight? What's it been like for you to coach and develop a football team and be away from home for such a long period of time?
Yeah, look, to be honest, my first year was great experience for me. And look, for me, I look at it in on a positive sense. When I initially took the job, we had 7 players on the roster, which gave me a blank canvas to actually recruit players that I believed could fit in the way that we wanted to play. And, obviously the start of the season, we started off a little bit slow, new players, forming a new team, understanding a new game plan, a game style. And, but we saw the fruits of it towards the back end of the season. We ended up finishing 3rd that year. And obviously COVID hitting at the time that it hit, stopped a lot of things. And we had a bit of players based in Australia, a few players based in New Zealand, a few players based back over in the UK. And Ulysses went back to Mexico, and, it was one of those ones that we didn't know when the season was going to start. We get the group back together and go again. And look, we made the final series. It was disappointing the way that we went out with that loss against Perth. And then obviously COVID hit again, and then we had to base ourselves last season in Australia, which was a challenge in itself. And look, we've been fortunate because we've got a young group. We don't have too many players with, when I say families, where they have a wife and kids. Everyone has families, yeah. But the boys are young. Some have girlfriends, and so it was a lot more manageable. I think if we had a team that was a lot more senior players that had families, I think it would have been much more of a struggle. In that sense of trying to keep people happy with, kids coming over and going back to school and trying to organise the schooling and stuff like that and living their normal lives would have been a lot more difficult. But it was good in the sense that we had a good group, a good young group that, they just wanted to play football. And that's what we focus on, the things that we can influence and the things that we can affect. And, that's our performance and the way we prepare ourselves for the games, and all the other stuff that's out of our control. Don't worry about it too much, to be honest.
I love that. You've got a glass half full attitude, and you've spoken about that before. So the we talk a lot about on the show, Uffy, about resilience. It's so important for playing and coaching, because we all know that coaching's an interesting journey that's going to have some ups and downs in it. But I'm guessing that this group of young men have developed their resilience along the journey.
Yeah, they have. Look, everything that's been put in front of them, I think they like the challenge. Every obstacle in front of them, they want to try to get over and jump over the best they can. And I think, look, I'm a big believer. It comes from the top down as well. And for us as staff, we just get on with the job and the task at hand, and that's try to win games on the weekend and get ourselves in a good position by the end of the season. So. Everything else, like I said, there'll be so many fires that you can put out with all the external stuff happening. But for me, if we worry about that too much, I think it influences what we need to do on the weekend.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot, mate. How about coaching? You were obviously in isolation for 7 days. Does the advent of Zoom and cameras out on training, you watching training sessions when you're locked away? How have you dealt with that?
To be honest, with the amount of games, Gary, we haven't trained a lot. It's more about just refreshing the players and having a lot of injuries and a few players out with COVID. With the numbers that we have, it's just about maintaining them and trying to keep them fresh and get them going for the next game. So training sessions wise, the plan is pretty much easy with us and the staff. My staff understand what they need to do and the leading to the games and how we prepare for it. So it's been more so whilst the on the phone with Giancarlo and going through the game plan and them sending me footage of the opposition that we're playing, and then we come up with the game plan of what we want to do, and then Chiefy will go out there and then try to go and do the job the best he can. And during the game, it was live, and I was always on contact with our video analysis about what he can say at halftime and what we probably need to change or what we can fix or what we can do better. And even with the substitutions, I would also let Logan, our analysis, know and pass that information down to Chiefy.
Yeah, good on you, mate. So, this is about your coaching journey, not about your playing journey, but we like to touch on it because I think that gives a background and a framework. In doing the research for this, I could find a lot about your professional playing career. I couldn't find one skerrick about your junior career. So I'm keen to know and learn where you fell in love with the game of football.
Where I fell in love with the game of football, I started at the age of 6 at Cabramatta Police Boys, just down the road from where I grew up in Cabramatta. My first World Cup was the 1986 World Cup, so I was 10 years old when that was, watched that live with my father. My father loved football a lot. He spent a lot of time with me in my junior years, all the way 6 till probably under 12s. I spent a lot of time with him when he decided to take over the team that I played for. He used to watch, I don't know if you remember, Gary, the Captain Socceroo videotapes that he had. He'd come home from work and he'd come and watch a few of the drills or the skills that they showed, and then we'd go down a little bit earlier before my training session with the team, and we'd work on certain things that he watched on the video. And he was very, very demanding in the sense that if I didn't get it right, we'd be working on it for that whole hour, which I didn't mind because I love being there at the same time, and I love the game so much. So, he played a big role in me getting where I've got to with all the time and energy and effort that he spent in there. It's not that he had a background as a footballer. He played as an amateur socially, but he just loved the game, and I think that love grew with me, with my dad watching the game.
Yeah. That time with your dad, that additional time outside of training where you're not only falling in love with the game, but falling in love with the ball. And I'm going to assume that you did fall in love with the ball, because that anyone that watched you play would talk about the silky skills, the vision, your passing ability, the technical side of what you could do. How important was that for you one is your development of a player, and two, in developing your touch and your vision and your passing?
Oh, very, very important. I think the hours that you spent playing with the ball, touching the ball, if my mates weren't around, the brick wall was my best friend. When I was growing up, we had a garage downstairs, a brick garage where there was cricket stumps painted on it. And I used to drive the ball and try to hit the stumps, and it'd come back to me, use my instep, use the outside of your foot and continuously try things. And also the unstructured times where on the weekends when we had time with our mates, playing across from the schoolyard for hours and hours, and if there was no adults there, it was very unstructured. And I remember we used to argue for half an hour whether it was a goal or it wasn't a goal because we had no goalposts. It's just been in that environment of making decisions yourself and putting yourself in those situations. And the tough thing now is I think that the kids don't get enough of what we got as we were coming through, and that's more so the unstructured stuff.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree more, mate. Stay on your playing career for a little bit longer. How old were you when you went to Marconi?
So I came back. I joined Marconi. I think it was the under-14s because we went overseas to Turkey for close to 2 years. So I spent 2 years close to 2 years, 88 and 89 in Turkey, and then we came back and I trialled for Marconi. To be honest, I didn't actually make Marconi. I made Southern Districts. They had Marconi and Southern Districts at that time together. So, and then I made my senior debut under Frank Arrock when I was 16. He gave me the opportunity to play with the senior team. Yeah. So I think it was 1992 I made my debut with the senior team.
Yeah. And with some good players around that time, obviously your paths seem to have crossed with Bimby, Steve Corica, fairly regularly. I'm assuming you two are mates.
Yeah, we are good mates. I've known Bimby for a long time. Obviously playing at Marconi together. That first year that I actually broke into the squad when we won the title, when Harps actually scored the penalty against Adelaide at Parramatta Stadium. So, we had a very good side then. We had Mark Schwarzer was there, Ian Gray was there, Kimon Doris. We had Armando Palucci was there. So, George Zalewski, Kulevski. I could go through the whole team now of all the players. And they were very good players. And they were very senior players compared to me being a 16-year-old.
Yeah. How much? It's interesting because I was sort of a similar age when I made my first team. How much, if you can think back, how much of the coaching that you got, you reckon, was on the pitch from the senior players?
Yeah, a lot. I think there was a lot of coaching from the senior boys in the sense. It was also one of those ones where I think in football you earn your respect of what you do on the field. Being a good person, I think, is a normal thing off the field at the end of the day. But where you earn your respect from your teammates is what you do and what you produce on the field. And you needed to step up because we had Dutchy there as well, we had JP there as well, and trust me, they weren't shy of going through that training if they really needed to, So, and if you dusted yourself up and got back up again and did the same thing to them, you start to earn their respect, and when you play the game alongside them.
Yeah. So all that obviously went well. You continued to grow and develop, and then you get signed for not just a club in Turkey. You get signed by one of the biggest clubs in Turkey, coached at the time by Graham Souness, the former Liverpool legend that had played out here in the late 70s for a very short period of time. But talk us through that period of career, because that must have been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, look, for me, it was a great experience. I spent close to 10 years playing in Turkey. Going to a big club like Galatasaray was for me a massive eye opener as well. It's a different ball game over there, and it's you got to fight for your position there because there's a lot of players breathing down your neck and want to take your spot. So Graham gave me an opportunity, gave me a contract when I went over there. Ended up having a good season that year, and then obviously Graham moved on, and then a new coach came in, and I was a little bit in and out. And at that time, I was still, I think I was 19, 20, coming to that age, and I still felt it was very important for me to get game time rather than just stay at a big club and be happy to play now and then.
Yeah,
and that's probably why mostly I went on loan at that time, because I felt for my development to continue and for me to get better, it was better that I go and get game time somewhere else if I was going to get game time, at a big club at Galatasaray.
Yeah, no, I reckon that was a wise move, mate. Because at the end of the day, you can have the best coaches in the world, but you get better as a player by being able to apply all that stuff you learn out on the pitch on the weekend, don't you?
Well, the game is as much as we feel that we have control of the game as coaches. Once that whistle goes, I think we lose a bit of that control because players will end up doing what they're going to do anyway. According to how we set them up to the best of their ability. But the reality is you learn more because the game is still, for me, as much as it looks structured, it's unstructured. And there's some things that you may not be able to do at training that you will get in the game. And the reality is in the game, there's more accountability. At training, if you miss a goal or, you make a mistake, you don't get hurt. But on the weekend, if you do make mistakes, you do get punished for it.
You certainly do. One last thing, and then we'll move on to your coaching career. We're recording this early April. They don't go to. There's normally a couple of weeks lag. This morning, Ange's Celtic beat Rangers at Rangers in the Old Firm derby 2-1. That's his second win in a massive derby. I just wanted to touch on the Galatasaray Fenerbahce because you must have played in and around a couple of those. That's got to be one of the craziest derbies on the planet, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very fiery atmosphere, both home and away. When we used to go to the away games, we'd always take the old bus to the stadium. Would never take the new bus because generally the windows would come down on the old bus with all the stones being thrown and painted at the bus. It's just one of those ones. It was unfortunately when as you make your way down to Fenerbahce Stadium, you have to actually go under a bridge where trains go over, and the big rocks on those railway lines, and the fans would be waiting there for the bus, and the bus would speed right up so we can get through there as soon as possible before everything actually gets smashed down. So look, it's a different atmosphere. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of passion with the fans, and even at those big clubs, if you don't win the title, as long as you win the derby, the fans are quite happy with that.
Just like the old NSL with South Melbourne and Heidelberg, as I remember it. So, Uffy, where were you on your playing career when you first started to think about coaching?
I did my C license whilst I was playing. It was towards the back end of my career. I think I was at North Queensland just before I ended up stopping playing. I always wanted to go into coaching. I believe the game has given a lot to me in the playing sense, and I always wanted to stay in the game and try to give back as much as I can with my knowledge that I have from the game that I've played. So I was always thinking ahead that once I do retire, that I can go into coaching. But I didn't want to jump at the first opportunity as well, Gary, because playing is different and coaching is totally different as well. Playing athletes are selfish, and all you have to do is really think about yourself. But as a coach, it's not just the group. You can have 25, 26, whatever, 30 players. You have your staff, that you need to manage. You have the board above you that you need to manage as well. The fans, the media. There's so much to it. So I actually went straight into New South Wales Football Federation, and Alex gave me a job as a skill acquisition coach, which for me was great at the end of the day because I was working with kids and I had to break the game right down to them because they were at that level where, even little things like locking your ankle or how to strike a ball. And, for me, I wanted to start right from the bottom and work my way up.
Yeah. So where was your first opportunity with the team? Was that at Sydney United?
Sydney United. So my last year at Sydney, I really didn't want to play. JP was the coach at the time. I really didn't want to play once I retired at North Queensland. And Mark was assisting him at that time, Rudes. And Rudes was asking me questions if I wanted to play. And I said to Rudes, look, I'll only play if you play. And he said, I don't want to play. And I said, mate, the only way I'll play is if you play. And so I made him play as well. And then he ended up playing that season as well. So we ended up having a decent season. We made the grand final. We lost the Sydney Olympic that year at United. So we're now playing under JP. So for me, my intention was not to play, but Rude's asking me and then making him play as well. So we ended up, like I said, having a decent season. Then after that, I started to assist JP after that as well. But at the same time, I was still doing that Skillac group in the evenings.
Yeah. And then the opportunity to go to the AIS with Tony Vidmar and Peter Daru came around.
Yeah, that was for me. I think it was the biggest learning for me at the Institute of Sport. Firstly, working with Tony, very knowledgeable, had a great career in the game, and also, Peter Daru being our technical director, and they have very good understanding of the game as well, and all the service providers that work down at the Institute of Sport as well, with the S&C and the physios and even the nutrition side of things. For me, it wasn't just for the players, but also for me as a developing coach, it was very important to have around me to be able to learn and become better at what I do. So I spent close to 6 years down there, which I think was a big factor in also not just understanding the game of football, but understanding the outside factors as well of, the S&C side of things, the physiotherapy side of things, and when players are coming back and how to manage load and all those types of things.
So a wonderful opportunity to serve an apprenticeship before you take on that.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely, it was a great area where, look, we were working a program where we're developing players for the future that could potentially become footballers. At the end of the day, there's no guarantee at that age that anyone will be guaranteed anything, but we were working with players that had the potential to become footballers. So it was a good environment where, we're probably more so judged on the developing side of things rather than results.
Yeah.
So that's for me, it's more an environment where you can try things as a coach and see if it comes to fruition, or it doesn't come to fruition. And it's one of those areas where at the same time as we're teaching the players, we're learning as well.
Yeah. No, I love that a lot. I also had the opportunity to serve an apprenticeship there. I was actually in Canberra last week and caught up with Ronnie Smith for dinner, and we had a good chat about the time we spent there. Different in the timeline, because when I was there assisting Ronnie, the age of the athletes was between 16 and 19. But then that whole scenario changed. Can you explain why it changed and the age of the athletes that you're working with?
I think what's happened was, as the A-League has formed, I think as the academies started to form, I think the onus was starting to fall on the clubs to produce those players after a certain age. I think get them in at 14, 15, maybe, 14 was probably the youngest, but 15, 16, and then once they were turning 17, the Joey's program or the qualifiers were over, then the new group would come in. I think after that, I believe they should be in club space, to be honest. I think the clubs should be starting to, once they had the academies up, developing their own players for their first team. So I think the age that we had him at was a good age, and it worked within the World Cup cycle to be able to work with them for continuously for 2 seasons or 2 years, I'll say. And that's why I think the age group actually got a little bit younger. That's the reality of it. So because maybe back in the old NSL days, it was great for those really elite players to be able to play with each other. And that's the same thing that we tried to do, obviously, with the younger age group.
Yeah. And how many of those would have then gone into the Joes? Did it make up the bulk of the Joes squad? You were assistant there as well for a while.
Yeah, but the bulk came from the AIS. There was always going to be players because, at that age, at 15, 16, the kid that's 15 could be very small, and then in 1 year they shoot up, and then all of a sudden they catch up with everybody. And to be honest, whilst we were at the AIS, we always try to pick the players that we thought that could actually become a footballer, had the technical attributes and the game awareness. We didn't go off size, saying that he needs to be a certain size, because it's easy in those age groups to go, we can go for the biggest and strongest, and we can qualify for every World Cup. But then after that World Cup cycle, we have no players coming through, within the game for Australia. So we always try to pick players that we believe that had the potential to actually become footballers. Some were a little bit smaller, some were a little bit bigger, depending, of obviously their maturity and how their growth spurts were. But the aim was always to try to find actual footballers and produce footballers.
Yeah. No, I like that, mate. On your playing journey, which coach or coaches, on your playing and your coaching journey, which coach or coaches has had the most influence on you and why?
Yeah, look, I think everybody that I work with has influenced certain parts. You always look at coaches and go, well, that sounds good, that probably work for me. And some coaches go, maybe I wouldn't have handled it that way. So I think there's always learning moments from every coach that you work with. For me, look, in Turkey, the longest serving, probably won 4 championships when he came into the job at Galatasaray, was Fatih Terim. He was probably one of the first guys that we actually started to do some very tactical work on the game plan and the game style. Previously, that wasn't the case, and I remember we used to watch videos with the previous coaches. We used to watch videos for 90 minutes of the opposition. That's a long time to sit in a meeting room and watch a video of the opposition and do analysis that way. So, time to change. We try to squeeze it down to 10 to 12 minutes with the players, the information we throw out there, because I think the attention span will start to go after 15 minutes with players. So, yeah, look, there's for me, I think Fatih Terim is the standout one for me. But look, like I said, for me, you learn a lot of people as long as you got your ears open and you've got your eyes locked in and you're listening and trying to hear everything that they say.
Attitude's a wonderful thing. All right, I'm going to guess. Sorry, people when they talk about Ufi the player talk about his touch and his technique, his silky skills. They talk about his vision and his passing range. And when people talk about Ufi the coach, they talk about free-flowing attacking style of play. Do you think the way you want to play the game of football has evolved because of who you were as a player first?
Yeah, look, for me, as a midfielder, I think you're a box-to-box player. You do a lot of running. You try to cover a lot of ground, but for me, the most enjoyable part of the game is actually playing with the ball. That's why we want to play football, because we want the ball at our feet, and generally midfielders are ones that get probably most touches within the game, and try to influence the game with and without the ball. So for me, I want my team to have the ball as much as we can. At the same time, it needs to be effective. It's not the point of having possession. We had a lot of possession against Melbourne City in the last game, but we still lost 6-0. So, possession with effective, where we want to go forward. And for me, it's about putting the players in the right areas with the right attributes that can influence the game. We want to play our 10s. We want them to be able to play in tight areas and be able to turn on a dime and face forward and shoot and assist goals and, create opportunities. We want my 6s to be able to cover a lot of ground, win a lot of balls for us, cover the gaps that the 10s are leaving in transition and at the same time, but when we do have the ball, become ball players again. So for me, the way formation in football for me is a starting point. As the ball moves, everybody moves. So for me, it's more about putting players that have certain attributes in certain areas to try to influence the game.
Yeah, no, I like that. Thanks for sharing that. One of the other things that's come up on here over the journey, Ulf, is the difference between in coaching aspiration and capability. So if we've got this philosophy about the way we want to play, and I love watching Manchester City play. I love the way Guardiola plays. I love the way Liverpool play. I'm a Chelsea man, and I like the way Chelsea play some of the time. Not as much as sometimes I do the others, but wanting to play the game of football like that and having this group of players at this club right here, right now, how as a coach have you balanced the difference between what you want to do and what you've currently got on hand?
Yeah, look, that's like I said, that's why it's very important for me coming in with 7 players and having a clean slate and bringing the players that you want to bring in. Look, for me, it's if I inherited a team where you inherit a full squad of players, sometimes unfortunately, you might end up taking a job mid-season.
Yeah,
I don't think it's wise to go in and try to change completely everything and take over that role. The players have probably been used to playing a certain way under the previous coach. I believe that you might try to tweak it or change it or try to add more to it if you can to make it better.
yeah,
But again, for me, it comes down to the attributes of the individuals that allow you to play a certain way. Uh, if we've got 8 central defenders playing, we're not going to play silky football, are we? We're probably going to try to launch it and play for seconds, and then play off that. So I think it comes down to always for me is the attributes of the players and putting them in the right areas, and then you can sort of like introduce your philosophy or your principles or your playing style to the way you want to play. And if you don't
yeah,
have that, you might still stick to your principles, but you might have to tweak certain things to get the outcome that you need.
yeah. No, I like that again. Thank you. You're in your first stint as a head coach in your third season, I think, as a head coach. Yeah, sorry, you also were head coach with the Australian under-20 team for a couple of seasons there as well. Um, um, that was a good introduction to a good question. Now it's gone straight out of my head. Oh, I know. How has your coaching changed or developed over the journey?
I think you learn a lot about yourself. You learn about managing individuals and managing a team as well. You learn about different characters within your group. I think you learn about also the characters of your staff and how they respond to certain things as well.
Yeah,
But for me, the coaching journey has taught me sometimes there's certain things, like I said, that you can't influence. But for me, I always believe, and when this is what we believe with our team, as long as we're the best prepared team possible, there's always going to be 3 outcomes. We're either going to win, we're either going to draw, or we're going to lose for whatever reason. But as long as we know that we've given everything possible and prepared the boys the best we can and given the best information possible for that game, sometimes you can play out of your skin and still lose games. And I've always said to our boys that we focus on the performance and the result will take care of itself, because I think if we focus just on the result, then we start to move away of things that we probably shouldn't be doing on the park, because all we're thinking about is the result. So I believe if we focus on the performance, I believe 8 times out of 10 that we'll get the result that we want.
yeah. No, thanks, mate. Um, so, so are you, when you work with the players today, are you different in the way you deal with them as individuals than you were as a coach that ran onto the pitch at the AIS that however many years ago that was?
Yeah, totally different. I think you just got to manage the individual. We have some young players and we have some senior players and senior players that have played 200, 300 games, just want to be told what to do. And it's easy just to tell them and say, this is what my expectation is of that role. And then they go out there and do it. And
Yeah,
sometimes the younger players need a few more questions to get to the point that they want to get to. And we just need to maybe break it down a little bit more for them and get the information across. And every individual is different. I always say, look, we have 5 fingers on our hand, Gary, and they're all different sizes and shapes, mate. So we've got to treat them all differently. And my job as a coach is to get best out of individuals and
yeah,
best out of my staff. And my job is to find that way of who responds to what, and like I said, for me is to get the best out of them to maximize so we can get the result that we want.
yeah. No, I like that
It's
again.
not black and white. It's not black and white, unfortunately. I know people will like to hear that it's black and white, but it's not black and white. For me, it's understanding your players, having the self-awareness of yourself, and have awareness of what they can take and how they respond to the information that you give them. Some like it short and simple, like I said, and some like a long sentence of what they need to do. And if that's required to do it, then I need to do it.
Yeah. Uf, I'm just, something came into my head when I was working this morning. I read a quote from Rob Morrison, your chairman, talking about essentially why they gave you the job, what sort of stuck out when they were going through that interview process. And one of the things he mentioned was the significant investment that Wellington had made in their academy. I'm not quite sure how long that's gone for today. You haven't spent an awful lot of time in Wellington, so you might not know this. But where's the development of young New Zealand players compared to Australia? Do you think they're on par? Is one in front of the other? And because there seems to be this. Sorry,
I think it's a little bit. Look, obviously, there's 5 million people that live in New Zealand, so it's not a bigger pool as we have in Australia. Yeah. The academy, yes, Rob is right, because the club has invested a lot into the academy. This season we have 13 academy players within our squad. Currently here, and we've got another 2 flying over today, actually, because like with the injuries and the COVID we have at the moment, so we've got another 2 coming over. And look, football is a business at the end of the day. No owner wants to throw money and lose money.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I'm working for a New Zealand football club, so obviously we are promoting New Zealand young boys through the academy within the first team. And you've seen, like last season, the club sold Libby Kakache, and the season before they sold Sarpreet Singh to Bayern. And there's a few players that have gone overseas. Maybe we haven't sold them, but there's still the training compensation because they're under 23 at the moment. So, look, football is a business. We want to be competitive as a club. We still want to challenge for top 6 and be competitive and try to go as far as we can and try to win things. But at the same time, we understand where we are within the footballing landscape. We're not Real Madrid, where we just sign all the best players in the world and just continuously just try to win competitions. Where we're in a space where we know that we can develop our own. And I think that probably played a major role within me being employed at the club, coming through the youth ranks at the AIS with the Joeys and also with the 20s, and working with youth players. And we give opportunities to younger players, and we've shown that this season that we have done that. And look, at the end of the day, it's also my job to recognise when we can throw them in and when we need to pull them back out and give them a breather, and recognise which game we can chuck them back in there. Look, at this stage, we haven't had that luxury with the injuries and COVID, but and they're getting more game time than probably what we thought they would have. But look, at the end of the day, and if these players come through and there's an opportunity that they go away with the 20s or 23s, and we've had a couple of our young boys, Ben Old, who's 18, and Ben Wayne, it's just been away with the All Whites, and they get a move overseas and there's money coming back into the club, I think that's a great thing for Wellington Phoenix.
Oh, absolutely. All power to you, mate. All power to you. Well, on your coaching journey, have you had a coaching mentor? Have you had someone that you can talk to and bounce ideas off and help you work the way through things that are not working for you?
When Ange was in Australia, I was fortunate enough to also go away a lot with the Socceroos. In certain camps, I was fortunate to go away to the Confeds Cup as a scout as well, which was a great experience for me. And Ange, for me, whilst he was a Socceroos coach and we had camps that he was close by, would always pop his head in, which was great for me. And I think it was great for the players to see that the national team coach would actually come in to have lunch, with the young Socceroos staff. And players would see him, because obviously that's the end product of where we want to get them and where they would like to be. And the players see that the Socceroos coach has a big interest in these young players coming through. So, I've had many of the discussions with Ange. Even my first season, I had a few discussions with him over the phone about certain situations. So he's been very helpful in that sense.
Yeah, he's done in doing this podcast for the last year, it's amazing just how many people he's done that with, how many people he's reached out to, how many people he's taken to Japan to give opportunities for. I think, he gets best recognised for what he does on the pitch coaching his players, but his persistence in helping coaches has been quite remarkable as well.
Yeah, very, 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 very remarkable. I think he has a lot of interest. I think he wants obviously Australia to be successful. He wants Australian coaches to be successful, and I think he's doing a fantastic job flying the flag now with Celtic for Australian coaches. And Muskie's obviously taken that role over in Japan that he vacated, and Muskie's doing well. So he's doing a fantastic job for us Australian coaches to have the opportunity to coach overseas as well.
Couldn't agree more. Well, can I just go back to being head coach of the under-20s? So I had a squiz beforehand about the 2018 Asia Cup, where I think you were the coach. Got through the group stage undefeated, and we lost to the eventual winners, Saudi Arabia, 3-1 in the
I wasn't there for that one. That would have been Talay. I took the group after that. I had the 97 groups, the George Blackwoods and those guys, the 97 group in Bahrain. We didn't get out of the group. We drew the last game, and we didn't get out of the group. That was my first qualifiers.
Yeah,
in Bahrain.
When you're in there in that national team environment and you're going to tournaments and you're playing games against other nations, do you get a feel for where Australia is in terms of player development and what we haven't done or how far we've fallen behind? Because it seems to me, my observation is that we haven't necessarily invested in player or coach development incredibly well in the last bit. And then we've got a national coach, and if we don't qualify, they get crucified because they're expected to work miracles. But I think you've got an incredible insight because you've been over there and you've seen what goes on. Where do you reckon we fit in the overall scheme of things of player development in Asia?
Look, for me, when I did, Gary, the 20s job is one of the most difficult jobs. I believe, other than the Socceroos, obviously, is the 20s is a difficult job. I think they're at that age where they're sort of like in between, where they're sort of like some are playing, some are not playing. Within A-League clubs, and most of them weren't playing at that time within A-League clubs. And those boys that we believe are those talented players within the NPL space or the NYL space, I don't believe we're getting challenged enough or getting enough game time with the seasons not being long enough. Where, for me, I believe they should be playing 40 to 50 games in a year, which will help their development. So for me, like I said, the 20s job is the hardest one, and we'd always try to pick the side where we think that these are the best players. And sometimes those best players won't get enough game time leading into those tournaments where, they can't play a full 90 minutes because they haven't played regular football in their club space. So it's a tough gig at the end of the day. Like I said, I think back in our day, there was more teams, more opportunities for younger players. And unfortunately, look, I don't know what the lifespan within the A-League is with head coaches. Gary, maybe you have a better insight of the longevity of an A-League coach at the moment. But, when there's pressure for coaches to win games and make top six and win titles, then I feel that coaches tend to move away of playing younger players because younger players tend to be inconsistent. They might play 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, and the next game they might give you a 2 out of 10. Whereas an experienced player, if he has a good game, he's playing 8 or a 9. But if he has a bad game, he's doing a 6 out of 10. Where he's the basic fundamentals of winning the ball and finding your teammates. So the risk of playing young players, the coaches don't go down that path because obviously they're under pressure to win games. So that might play a massive factor of our talented players not being exposed at a decent level.
Yeah. No, I like that. It is, and perhaps that is one of the. There's not been too many upsides of the last couple of years with COVID, but as a result of that, in looking around the A League, we've seen more young Australian coaches coaching teams, and because they're aware of the young players and budgets have come back to the field a bit, there's probably been more young Australian and New Zealand players playing the A League in the last 2 seasons than there has been the last 6 or 8 seasons. The number
Yeah,
that have come through and had opportunities.
I agree with that. I think COVID, obviously, with the restricting budgets within the clubs, I think has created more opportunities for younger players to come through and step up. And you see, look, young players are going to make mistakes. You got to wear that as a coach. You know that's going to happen. And that's why I believe you pick your moments of when to use them and how to use them, and what games you throw them in the deep end, and what games you give them the floaties and you pull them back out next to you so they can sit next beside you and then go again, because, Gary, football is about confidence. When you're confident, you do certain things within the park, and if you're not confident, you're not making that run that you're supposed to make that run because you're worried about tracking back or getting back in time or whatever that is. So, for me, the talent is there. I just believe they need more exposure at that level. And I still believe even they need more exposure at international level. Obviously within restrictions, when I worked with the 20s and we went to the pre-qualifiers in Vietnam, in 12 months, I had one camp leading into those qualifiers. So for me, I believe one camp is not enough to have success. And for me, the biggest thing is to get those players exposure that we need at international level as well, and playing in World Cups is, we need to qualify for these so they get that exposure. And the best thing that happens now with New Zealand is obviously being in Oceania. New Zealand, the 17s and the 20s and the 23s, they always qualify for these big tournaments, and players get exposed to these big tournaments regardless of whether they come out of the group stage or not, but they get that exposure that they need.
Yeah, the upside of still being in Oceania.
Look, that's the upside of it, I think, is qualifying. And still, you look at the last 20s group of these Gianni Stensons that went away, Libby Kakache, Sarpreet Singh, we had Callum McCowart and all these boys that were part of that group have gone to, good places. Yeah.
No, all power to them. Why do you do it, Uf? Why do you coach?
I ask myself every day, Gary, why? Look, for me, I love the game. Like I said, the game has given a lot to me in a playing sense. I don't think I know anything better, to be honest. I don't know if I didn't have football in my life, what I would have done. Yes, it has its frustrations and its stresses at times, but for me, it's a beautiful game. For me, football is about relationships. Also, with my staff and my players. Like at the end of the day, it is a game. It is a sport. It's a game that's, I'm very passionate about, very fiery about. Want to win. I don't like losing. I've always been a winner. And I try to instill that into my players and try to help my players achieve also their goals and their dreams of where they see themselves, and try to push them in the right direction. Sometimes it's a slap against the back of the head, and sometimes it's a cuddle, Gary. You know what I mean? And everyone's different and how they take the information. So for me, like I said, it's about relationships and helping those guys. And even the last season, Libby Kakache coming back and giving me a hug at the ground when I see him again, and hopefully I didn't develop him. I was there for one or two seasons with him, but I didn't develop him. But if I've had an impact or influenced a little bit, that's helped him get to where he wants to get to. For me, that's a massive bonus and a positive.
Yeah, all power to you, mate. So on your journey thus far, what have been some of your most enjoyable moments?
Winning games is the most enjoyable part. I think learning about myself a little bit more has been the most enjoyable part. I'm a fiery, feisty person. Sometimes you might see that on the sideline. I have awareness of that, and don't get me wrong, it's not that I go all red eyes and go crazy, but I'm aware of it, and I sometimes try to control it the best I can, but sometimes the passion kicks in as well with that. But I think it's more so learning about myself and my character as well. And sometimes when I think you learn more about yourself when things are not going well than when they actually are going well. And I think those first 4 games or 5 games at Wellington Phoenix was a great eye-opener. That's, it's not an easy gig to actually do, actually be a coach as well.
Yeah. I think you lost 4 in a row, your first 4 games?
I think we lost our first 4 or 5, or maybe the 6th one we drew, and then we won our 7th game. But the one thing I've learned, and with the coaches that I work with, and Angie's a big one in that, is staying strong in your beliefs and staying strong in your processes. And I believe it's easy to waver and move away from things when you go, well, it's not working. But I think if you're strong as a coach and you believe that this is the best way of getting the results that we need to get, I think that's what helped us, and not wavering away from it and not shying away and saying this is not working, we need to change things and keep implementing the same thing. And we saw the fruits of it towards the back end of the season.
Oh, you did. I mean, it ended up being a fantastic season. I think you finished 3rd, which is the highest that Phoenix finished in the finals there. And when you're going through that, the challenge personally is interesting. It certainly was for me. I went through it a couple of times. But is there self-doubt? Is there what sort of things going through your head as there's another one game becomes 2 and 2 games becomes 3? What are some of the things that go through your head, and you know that you've got to shake yourself out of it and focus on what you're doing for a better outcome?
Yeah, look, for me, the games that first season that we lost, performance-wise, we still played some good football without getting the outcome that we wanted. So that was a good positive sign for me that we were headed in the right direction. Also, for me, the biggest thing as a coach was, regardless that we lost the first or 5 games, was continue to take the pressure off the players and put it on me, and take the focus of the results for each game that we played away from the players, and rather than keep them on the performance, like I said earlier. And I was even asked about, do I feel any pressure? And, for me, I said as a response, I said, pressure is what you put on yourself, your own expectations of what you want to achieve in your life. So there is no pressure at the end of the day. And for me, like I said, the biggest thing was to take that pressure away from the players so they can still go out there and do their job and still focus on the positives. Even though we lost those games, we'd always do the reviews and go through what we did well. And if there was errors within the game that we needed to fix as a group or individually, we'd always do that separate from the players. As you know, Gary, with the players, they have pride and they have an ego and they have a status within the group. And if you show negatives within the group, they actually don't take the information on board, because they're probably most likely thinking about, what's my teammate thinking about me now because I made a mistake, at this part of the game or whatever it was. So if there was individual stuff we needed to fix, we did it with actually individuals. We spent a lot of video time trying to correct individuals within their game as well. And mindful, obviously, their status in the group doesn't get hurt as players are.
Yeah.
So for me, there was a lot of sleepless nights those first 4 weeks as well, trying to find solutions on how to make it better. But like for me, the biggest thing was believing in the process and sticking to our guns, and continuing on that journey that we believed was the right way of doing things.
Yeah, all power to you, brother. What are some of the valuable lessons you've learned on your journey so far?
Like I said, I think the biggest ones that I've learned, obviously, like I said, more about myself, more about my character. Times where I would probably have shined in a bad way, where I've actually stepped back and said, okay, I need to let this moment go, because there's a bigger picture to this. Also, I think the biggest thing was, I brought Chiefy with me when I went across, and I inherited staff as well. So It was also not just teaching the players what we wanted to do. It was also getting the staff on board of how I like to work and how I like things done as well, which was a process as well, because things don't happen overnight. And look, I was very fortunate enough to work with a board that understands understand the game and understand what coaching is like, and understanding that starting from scratch with a new squad will take time to get to a point. And they were very supporting in that sense, because, in Europe, Gary, you lose 4 games in a row, you're very lucky to survive in that seat. So, and like I said, the performance has helped without the results, but I've been very fortunate that they believed in me, they believed in the process to kick off my career. Otherwise, it could have been a very short career at the end of the day.
The wisdom shone through. I think to bring someone in with 7 players and expect that they're going to win the first 4 games would be, whilst everyone's hoping for that, I think that's maybe.
Well, it is possible, Gary. It is possible. I had 3 coaches in one season. Like I went to a club and they signed 20 players. It was a second division club before I came back to Australia, and they wanted to get promoted to the top division. Spent a lot of money. We won our first game, drew our second, lost 2 after that, and the gaffer was gone. Then we had another gaffer come till Christmas, then he was gone, and then we had another coach till the end of the season. So it is very dangerous being a coach, especially in Turkey, because a lot of things are based on emotion. When you win, you're the best. When you lose, you're the worst. But it's part of the game, unfortunately, and we're in the public eye, and there's a lot of opinion about the game.
That's why standard coaching contracts are an important part of the Football Coaches of Australia agenda. We all understand that might happen, but at least look after the people you're given a contract to. So, So, Ulf, we're on the downhill run here. A couple of questions to go. What does success look like for you?
Look, success obviously within football is always nice with a trophy at the end of it. But for me, also, like I touched on earlier, success is the relationships that you form with the people that you work with, and also them reaching their goals within the same time as you trying to reach your goals. And for me, if I can help people get to where they want to get to, and at the same time have the success of trying to win trophies within a club, I think is one way of looking at the game. And look, also for me, we try to change things and try to implement things within the club. I try to, at Wellington Phoenix, create a group that was not the underdog. I hate the underdog tag within the game, because it's 11v11, Gary, at the end of the day. They play football, we play football. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, we win the game. But it's our job. We get paid to try to get results and try to implement, get rid of that underdog tag and play a certain brand of football. And I think we've changed it. I think we've changed the perspective of how teams actually look at Wellington Phoenix now. Sometimes if you have a look at the way that team's set up against Wellington Phoenix now, they show us a lot more respect, a lot more compact, a lot more disciplined, and try to nullify us to the spaces that we want to play. So I think I've tried to change the mindset within the club and also within the group.
Yeah, no, I like that, mate. And look, one of the things that you can guarantee is that you're always a good team to watch play football. Some teams, it seems they're trying to play good football other weeks, and then against some opposition they just can't play it. But you consistently play attractive football, which I guess is based on your philosophy and what you're trying to do there. So all power to you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
All right, mate. The toughest question of all. We saved this one to the last. No, it's not really. If you had one piece of wisdom that you could offer coaches, whether they're at the beginning of their journey, in the middle, or coming towards the end of it, there was one piece of coaching wisdom you could offer to other coaches, what would that be?
I think the question that you asked me, why do you want to be a coach? No, for me as a coach, and I've seen it with the people that I work with, and I've seen it with the ones that have had success in the game. And for me, like I said, Angie's the big one, is being strong in your beliefs. Being there, I don't compromise on the playing style and the philosophy and the principles of the way we want to play. Whether we are winning the game 5-0 or we are losing the game 5-0, we might tweak a few things, but I never compromise on my beliefs on the way the game should be played. That's one thing I would say to young coaches coming through. When things aren't going your way, it's easy to scrap it and throw it in the bin and start again. But I think that causes more problems and more issues, because then the players see that you don't believe in what you've been saying till now, and all of a sudden we're changing it again. So that belief goes from everybody. So I think as a young starting up coach, stay strong to your beliefs, stay strong to your principles, and I think if the processes are right and you're doing the right things, and obviously recruitment is very important in football. I think 70% comes down to recruitment, finding the right players that can play the way you want to play, and the 30% obviously is the technical condition, all that type of stuff. But if you, like I said, if you're strong in your beliefs, I think you'll head in the right direction.
I think that's a wonderful place to leave today's conversation. Many thanks, Ufuk Talay, manager of Wellington Phoenix. Mate, I know you've got a few games to go in this season. It's very, very diverse. Some teams have played 22 games. Some teams have played 17 or 18. It's just crazy. So you've got a little way to go, but we wish you well, mate, through to the end of the season, and hopefully see you in the finals.
Cheers, Gary. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure, mate. Great to have you on board. You've been listening to The Football Coaching Life, a podcast brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media, the podcast professionals. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, go to footballcoachesauss.org.au. Check out, you might buy a membership, renew a membership, check out our resources online. And as well as listening to the podcast on your favourite channels, you can now watch this on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and search Football Coaches Australia, you'll be able to see Uffy and myself chat about this as well as talk about it. So you have a great day.